Welcome to another episode of the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. I'm your host, Steve Casillo. We definitely appreciate you being here today, listening on your favorite podcast platform, no doubt. Today, we bring in our financial philosopher, our financial guru, our financial person. That'd be Phillip Washington Jr. He is the host and executive producer of Wealth Building Made Simple, his own podcast. And today, we're talking about how to bet against government spending. We are here to talk about, what is the topic today? How to bet against government spending.
Yes.
And now, when it comes to federal finance, my knowledge of this is like a third grader. So we're gonna have to tiptoe through this. Let's do education 101 on this. And
you know what, Steve? You actually hit an important part that I missed in my podcast.
Yeah.
Do you know the reason? Like, common sense is what we all possess, and anytime something that you look at is not written in an understandable, common sense way,
yeah,
then the safe thing is to assume that somebody's lying somewhere, right?
yeah,
And so, like, when you look at the government numbers, and the reason why it's so convoluted is like complexity. Complexity is added for confusion. Now, I'm not saying some diabolical person like wrote it to trick people on purpose. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in the attempts for humans to perfect something because they're trying to avoid something, right? You get like confusion, right? I might use the idea of like what's something that's simple where like it's you know, I know somebody came to my house and I had a picture that was hung up in the wall, and if you look at it, like it's in the middle. And I've had plenty of people come to my house and they've never said the picture was off. But I have a friend who came in who's like a perfectionist. And he said, your picture's like a slight centimeter off. And I was like, move aside, sir. Right. But I mean, like, that's what I mean by somebody who's making something complicated that just doesn't have to be because of, like, you know, a mindset.
So let's then jump right into it. How does one bet against government spending?
So Bitcoin is the answer.
Bitcoin is the answer.
The bigger answer is you want to find something that is scarce, an asset that's scarce, because as governments can pay off when governments overspend. Then just like an individual overspends when their expenses are above their income, and their expenses are growing at a higher rate than what their income is growing at, which is the government right now. Then you know that ends up turning into like a default or a bankruptcy. Well, when governments default or bankrupt, especially one like the U.S. who can print their own money, right? They're probably not going to default, because if you could print your own money, you would never like go bankrupt, right? You would
you just keep printing more money.
Just print more money to pay it back, and so, but when that happens, it makes people say, "Oh, the cost of this goes up, the cost of this went up, all these costs of living are going up." It's not going up. It's like the value of your money is going down because they're printing more money to pay for their government debt. And so, if you're an individual or investor and you want to not get the value of your money flooded away, right, then you have to bet against government spending, or you have to put your money somewhere where the government can't create more of it to print it out of it. So money's going to flow. If people realize that, they're going to flow to things that government can't manipulate. Like historically, since the beginning of time that we have recorded, it's real estate, gold, right? But go ahead.
Can't the government do? I heard this on a podcast, a really interesting podcast, that this thing called the Year of Jubilee.
Yeah.
Can't the government just say, all right, you know what? We're going to wash all of our debts. We're going to start with a balance of zero again, which happened biblically it happened about every 50 years?
Every 49 years.
Every 49 years. Thank you.
The life of a generation that goes from 20 years old working to quote unquote retirement age. Like that was the time period. But they technically they could, but from a logistical standpoint today, it's tough because who owns government bonds? Like who owns the debt? Well, pensioners,
Yeah.
right? Insurance companies. There's been too many obligations that the government, shoved in institutions that bought the government debt that you're not defaulting on like some rich person that can take it. You're defaulting on like regular retirees.
Yeah.
Right? You're defaulting on Social Security participants. You're defaulting on, all those people. And so, the typical way you would think about it probably wouldn't work because then you'd have some people that would be upset and wouldn't do it. Right now, you can argue that if the government somehow was able to get everybody to buy Bitcoin or gold, and then like printed money to pay off all the debts, and then you'd have a rise in those prices, and then everybody would be neutral and balanced out. That's a good thought experiment, but right, you got free will,
and because they're not. You can print more money, but you can't print more Bitcoin. You cannot print more gold.
Nope. Yep. A gold literally is created from a star exploding. So that doesn't happen like very often.
Okay. See, now you're getting into finance 202, and we need to.
But the reason why you see when people go into Bitcoin is unlike gold, when you move into a digital world, where so real estate was one, but real estate was not portable. Right, you can't transfer your equity from Texas to California. It expresses different, even in different cities in Texas. Gold, if you got $1 million, $100 million, $1 billion in gold, like if you want to go to a different country because the government's acting up or whatever, like how do you get that across the border? It's hard and expensive to transfer all that gold. But Bitcoin,
it's heavy.
Yeah, you can put $1 billion in Bitcoin and have no cost to transfer as long as you remember your passkeys. And so you have a lot of people who have the money, that have the gray hairs, that have the money, that have educated themselves on Bitcoin now. That's why you see Larry Fink and all the big bank and fund managers changing, because now they understand technology and they go, oh, this is a ledger that nobody can tamper with, that governments can't overprint, that is super secure, that we can place value on. And so when they bring the flood of money to print all this stuff away, because like they're math people, they know like 1 plus, like the default's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
We're already feeling it. And so like, where do I place money? And they're going, nah, like this Bitcoin stuff definitely deserves, like you can have some gold, have some real estate, but the level of money coming onto Bitcoin is getting big, because they realize, man, this is scalable, scarce, portable, and untamperable. And that's just a great combination. Like that, the money flows to something that feels like that.
The U.S. is trillions of dollars in debt.
Yes.
I'm going to have you look into your crystal ball. Do you think the U.S. will ever be out of debt?
They don't have to be out of debt. For the system to work, you don't have to be out of debt. You just have to be able to manage your debt. It's kind of, think of it like a mortgage.
Okay.
Right? You can hypothetically always have a mortgage. As long as you can pay it, as long as your income and expenses match, you can have a mortgage forever.
So balancing your books. Which is what we always hear, the annual balancing of the budget.
Yeah. So they probably will never pay off debt, but right now their debt is like, when it gets over 100% of GDP, that's when it gets like dangerous. And when they're like, when we're running a deficit like we are right now, and then our debt is increasing at over a decade, 6% a year, over the last 5 years, 8% a year. So the increase of our debt is exponentially getting higher. That's when it gets like dangerous, because they can't. I think I read something like, even if they jacked up tax rates to some high level, there's still not enough money to pay for the deficit, because they're taking so much, because the government's crowding at the market with their borrowing. There's not enough money to invest in the productive areas of our economy that will raise the tax receipts that would pay for the debts, right? So, and that's advanced finance, but it's like the government's taking so much of the debt, that the money that should be going to productive businesses, that we don't have the productivity to outgrow the debt.
Right.
So the only option is to default through inflation, through printing money.
So if the takeaway here, stop printing money,
Well, no, they're going to print it. They don't have a choice.
They don't have it. Okay.
Yeah, if they don't print money, the system crashes, and you default, and that's like worse. So they're going to print money. They're going to create some. They're going to create some reason. War on climate change, right? Whatever. Like there'll be a reason why we need to spend a bunch of money, and they're going to spend it. And my buddy was going, man. So what are the options? I said, no, I actually agree with that option. Right? Just they're going to figure out a way to print money, print it, and as an individual, you have the free will to protect some of your. You can work in the industry that are growing faster than the inflation rate. You can put some of your money in real estate, gold, Bitcoin, and then you can outgrow it, right? And then if you don't, you're going to succumb to the flood. I use in my podcast the analogy of the ark. Noah was building the ark.
Yep.
And Noah said, "Hey, y'all, a flood's coming," and everybody's like, "Nah, this guy's crazy. Ain't no flood coming." Okay, like if you believe me, you got a spot. If you don't, you're gonna get drowned. Right?
Coming or going.
And that's what's happening. Right? I'm going, hey, listen, if you don't believe me, don't. Fine, get drowned. If you do, come on board. We got plenty of room.
And you've mentioned a couple times your podcast, and that podcast is called Wealth Building Made Simple. And if someone wanted more information about jumping on the ark or not, if someone wanted more information about Phillip Washington Jr., how can they reach out to you?
Wealthbuildingmadesimple.us. That is my best place and if you become a subscriber, you get lots of insights into how I'm building my ark, and how I'm taking my assets, to the
next level.
To the next level.
Wealthbuildingmadesimple.us. Right over there, Phillip Washington Jr. We do this every Friday right here on the podcast. And Phillip, go forth. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
You too, Steve. Thanks.
We appreciate you listening to the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. By the way, if you own a business and you are interested in being a part of the Consumer Advice Series, if you have the knowledge to give information in 10-minute increments to the consumers, shoot me an email to info@aboutmansfield.com. Again, that is info@aboutmansfield.com. We'll tell you how we can get you all set up. Appreciate it. We do it again next week right here on the podcast.